It's a little bit like running against John Kerry. Thanks so much.
Mr. Macko, you also have 3 minutes remaining.
I'm not here necessarily to bash either of my opponents. I'm merely here to tell the truth about them so that you'll see that the libertarian choice is the best one and vote for me. Regarding foreign aid, it's unconstitutional, it's unnecessary, and when we give it to both sides in conflicts, it makes both sides our enemies. Besides which, we're broke. We're $10 trillion in debt. We don't have the money. We have to put America first. We have to stop meddling in the affairs of foreign nations, and we have to have them stop meddling in our affairs. And one thing to start would be to stop that $1.1 billion to the Mexican army for the unconstitutional, unnecessary drug war. But a few more positive things. I want to get rid of all gun laws except the Second Amendment. We don't need them. We should start with Roosevelt's tax on machine guns. We should abolish the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. It is unconstitutional. I believe in instant runoff voting. That would allow you to choose your first, second, third, fourth choices so that you would no longer be terrorized into voting for the lesser of two evils because you would be, quote, throwing your vote away, unquote. I favor fully informed juries. All judges should be required to tell all jurors that they have the right to rule on the law as well as the case. I support Congressman Ron Paul's Sanctity of Life Amendment, which states that life begins at conception and should be protected until natural death, and to end the Supreme Court jurisdiction over abortion so the subject is returned to the states. The Republicans have been in control of either the presidency or the Congress or both the majority of the time since Roe versus Wade, and yet we still have as many abortion murders today as we did over 30 years ago. I want to improve education in this country, and the first step is to abolish the Department of Education. I want to improve health in this country. I want to abolish the Department of Health and Human Services, the Food and Drug Administration, and phase out Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. I support the Bricker Amendment, which was first proposed by Senator John Bricker back in the 1950s, so that the Constitution cannot be amended by treaties. In other words, the Senate and the President cannot sign away our God-given constitutional rights by treaties. I oppose the draft. I will never vote for a draft. I will never vote to increase your taxes. I will never vote for new taxes. I will never vote for new regulations. Vote for me, David Macko, Libertarian.
Thank you, David Macko. And now, in a remarkable show of consistency, Judge, you also have 3 minutes.
Highly consistent. Thank you. You know, sometimes I've been in this business for a while. Sometimes you can feel when you're winning when your opponent spends all of his time talking about you. And I like that. That's what the right-wing radio people have been doing for the last 6 weeks since I've been on radio. Let's talk about the radio ad. Let's talk about it common sense-wise. The fact of the matter is Congressman LaTourette voted to deregulate the banks, to deregulate the insurance industry, to deregulate the real estate industry in 1999. That's what he did. He sits on the Financial Services Committee. The only thing we really ask of our government is to protect us from bad guys. The Financial Services Committee of Congress has got a duty to protect us from the predators who are destroying our neighborhoods, that are destroying our stock market, that are destroying our banks across the street. In his process of protecting us from the predators in the lending institutions, he took $1,198,000 in contributions from that very industry he was supposed to be regulating. Now, I'm not making these stories up. They come from the Federal Election Commission. Now, Congressman LaTourette, unless I missed something in my searches, in 14 years in Congress, you have introduced 7 bills that became law. 6 of them were to rename post offices in honor of someone. I am unaware of anything that had anything to do with reining in the banking industry, which was your job to protect us. So the reality is, When I said I would have voted for the bailout, of course I would have. People are losing their savings. People are losing their homes. People are losing their jobs. No one knows what tomorrow is going to bring. And for a member of Congress, a senior member of the Financial Services Commission, to wake up in the morning and find out that because of the folly in Washington, 2,000 jobs were just crushed in Cleveland because they misused the bailout bill is unacceptable. Calling for an investigation and writing a letter to your friends in Washington is not going to bring back the 2,000 jobs that were lost across the street this week because $7 billion of our money was given to Pittsburgh so they could buy our bank that was founded before the Civil War. It's unacceptable. In Congress, I expect more.
Thank you, candidates. Now we return to Sanjeev Kapoor for some brief City Club announcements.
Today, at the City Club of Cleveland, we are listening to a debate between the candidates for United States Congress for Ohio's 14th District. Now, we would like to proceed with the question and answer portion of our debate. Holding microphones today are City Club Development Director Jessica Allen and Assistant Development Director Marcella Brown. Let's return to our moderator, Rick Jackson.
Thank you, Sanjeev. As he said, we'll now have the traditional City Club question and answer period. Questions addressed to a specific candidate will be answered by that candidate with a 1-minute limit. The other candidates may also comment for 30 seconds each. Questions addressed to all candidates will be answered by all with a 1-minute time limit from each. As the moderator, I reserve the right to ask any candidate a follow-up question or ask for clarification. Those responses will be limited to 30 seconds. To the audience, thank you in advance for your cooperation by making your questions actual questions. State them clearly, briefly as possible. The first question for our candidates, please. Jessica.
Bob Shiner. With the economic times the way they are and everybody looking for stimulus or ways to stimulate the economy, with Lake County we've got this ferry system, probably a highway extension program going. I'd like to know how you all feel about the ferry system from Canada to reduce emissions and help the trucking businesses and travel.
Thank you. Questions for all, 1 minute each. Mr. O'Neill, you may go first.
When I first heard about the ferry from Canada to, I believe it wants to come into Fairport Harbor in the Menor area, I thought it was actually a frivolous idea. And then someone told me that there actually a lot of truck traffic that goes around the Great Lakes to bring us products, and that we could save fuel doing that. I'm for anything that's a new idea, and I think a ferry that brings trucks and gets them off 90 is a good idea. Good idea.
Mr. Macko.
Well, if I'm elected, I probably won't have time to take a trip to Canada, so I hope Judge O'Neill or Congressman LaTourette could. More seriously, I would vote to abolish the Department of Transportation. I would vote to get rid of all federal laws, regulations, rules, court orders, executive orders that prevent the people of Lake County from having a ferry to Canada. It sounds like an interesting idea. It would save time if you're going to drive over there instead of going around Detroit or around Buffalo. Yeah, it sounds like a good idea, but let the free market decide. Don't let some government bureaucrats decide.
Mr. LaTourette.
Well, actually, the free market is going to decide, and there are 3 exciting projects, one in Cleveland, one in Ashtabula at the Penny Dock, and the one out in Grand River and Fairport Harbor. And the judge is right, and I want everybody to write that down. I said the judge is right, that there are a lot of trucks that in fact have to make that circuitous route through Buffalo or through Detroit. It not only loses time, it makes us not competitive, and it also increases pollution and our carbon footprint. So the 3 proposals are to, rather than go the hundreds of miles around the lakes, why don't we go the 38 miles across the lake? All of those projects have my full support, and aside from the benefits that I've just talked about, think about everybody in our district and everybody in northeastern Ohio who manufactures car parts who can be more competitive when ship those parts to Port Maitland, Port Stanley, and Port Burwell, to the automakers that are now operating up in Ontario. So